The first contact between humans and aliens happened on a crisp autumn morning. The skies over New York City darkened as massive ships descended, their smooth, organic shapes glowing faintly against the clouds. People froze in the streets, staring upward with wide eyes. These weren't just machines. They looked alive, pulsing softly like living creatures. The ships hovered silently, casting long shadows across the cityscape. No engines roared, no weapons fired. It was eerie but peaceful. At the center of the chaos stood Captain Daniel Hayes, a seasoned Marine stationed at a remote military base in Nevada. He wasn't in New York when the ships arrived, but he felt the tension ripple through every communication channel. His phone buzzed constantly with updates from Washington, D.C., where government officials scrambled to make sense of what was happening. Daniel had seen plenty of battles during his career, but this was something entirely different. Dr. Laura Bennett, a linguist known for her work decoding ancient languages, was brought in to lead efforts to communicate with the visitors. She was calm under pressure, her voice steady as she briefed Daniel and other key personnel via video call. "Their leader calls himself Calvor," she explained. "He's speaking directly into our minds, telepathically. They're curious about us, about our culture, our technology." Daniel frowned, leaning back in his chair. Something about the situation didn't sit right with him. The aliens seemed too polite, too eager to share knowledge without asking for anything in return. "What do they want?" he asked bluntly. "Nobody gives something for nothing." Laura hesitated before answering. "They claim they're explorers, that they've traveled across galaxies seeking understanding. But I don't know, Daniel. There's something strange about how vague they are, like they're hiding parts of themselves." As days passed, the aliens who called themselves the Valith began sharing incredible advancements with humanity. They offered solutions to global warming, curing diseases that had plagued mankind for centuries. Crowds cheered in the streets, celebrating the dawn of a new era. Yet Daniel couldn't shake his unease. Every time he watched footage of the towering Valith leaders, their shimmering forms moving gracefully, he felt a chill run down his spine. One evening, Daniel found himself sitting alone in his quarters, flipping through reports about the Valith. His mind kept drifting back to the battlefield. He remembered the look in the eyes of enemy soldiers moments before they died, the mix of fear and defiance. Was it possible these aliens were truly harmless, or were they biding their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. It was Lieutenant Ryan Cole, one of the younger officers stationed at the base. "Sir," Ryan said, saluting quickly, "there's talk among the men. Some think we shouldn't trust them." Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. "And what do you think, Lieutenant?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "I think, if they really wanted peace, why come here at all? Why not leave us alone?" It was a question Daniel had been asking himself. For now, he told Ryan to keep his opinions quiet and focus on following orders. But deep down, Daniel knew the young soldier might be onto something. The Valith were watching, learning, and Daniel couldn't help but wonder what they would do once they understood humanity well enough. Tensions began to rise when a group of rogue soldiers attacked one of the smaller Valith scout vessels near the outskirts of Nevada. The attack happened late at night, far from any major city, in an area where the aliens had been conducting what they called environmental studies. A small team of soldiers, led by Lieutenant Ryan Cole, drove out to the site with heavy weapons. They believed the aliens were up to something dangerous, something the government wasn't telling them about. The moment the first shot rang out, it was clear the humans were outmatched. The Valith ship didn't even seem to react at first. It just floated there, silent and still, as bullets ricocheted harmlessly off its surface. Then, without warning, the ship emitted a low hum. Bright beams of light shot out, disabling every vehicle and weapon the soldiers had brought. Within minutes, the entire team was captured, their hands bound by glowing restraints that pulsed faintly with energy. News of the attack spread quickly. Kelvor, the leader of the Valith, summoned representatives from Earth's governments to discuss the incident. Daniel Hayes was among those called to attend the meeting. He sat in a large conference room alongside Dr. Laura Bennett and several high-ranking officials. The air was thick with unease as Calavor's voice echoed in their minds, calm but firm. "Why would your people attack us?" Calvor asked. His tone wasn't angry, but there was an edge to it, a hint of confusion mixed with disappointment. "We have done nothing to harm you. We came in peace," Laura tried to explain. She spoke slowly, choosing her words carefully. "Humans are cautious," she said. "Some of us fear the unknown. When we don't understand something, we sometimes act out of fear instead of reason." Calivor paused, as if processing this. Then he turned his attention to Daniel. "One of your captured soldiers mentioned a term during questioning: battle crimes. What does this mean?" Daniel felt all eyes in the room shift toward him. He hesitated, unsure how much to say. Finally, he took a deep breath and began speaking. "Battle crimes are actions taken during war that go against the rules of decency or morality," he explained. "Things like targeting civilians, using torture, or destroying entire cities. Humans have done these things in the past, often because we let our emotions take over. War can make people do terrible things." The room fell silent. Calvor's expression, or what passed for an expression on his alien face, didn't change. But Daniel could sense the weight of his gaze. It was as if the alien was trying to see into his soul, to understand not just the words he spoke, but the history behind them. Later, after the meeting ended, Laura pulled Daniel aside. "Do you think they'll hold this against us?" she asked quietly. Her brow was furrowed with worry. "I don't know," Daniel admitted, "but I don't think they're going to forget it anytime soon." Over the next few days, subtle changes began to appear in the Valith's behavior. Their once open demeanor became more guarded, offers of aid slowed down, and their interactions with humans grew colder. Daniel noticed these shifts and couldn't shake the feeling that the aliens were reevaluating their stance on humanity. Laura shared his concerns. "They're watching us now," she said one evening as they walked together outside the base. "Studying us, trying to figure out if we're worth trusting." Daniel nodded grimly. "And if they decide we're not?" Laura didn't answer. She didn't need to. Both of them knew the stakes were higher than ever. The fragile trust between humans and the Valith was beginning to crack, and neither side seemed willing to take the first step toward repairing it. The Valith's behavior continued to shift in ways that made Daniel Hayes uneasy. What had started as curiosity and openness now felt distant, almost mechanical. The aliens still shared their advanced knowledge with humanity, but the exchanges lacked warmth. It was as if they were going through the motions, ticking boxes on some invisible checklist. Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing beneath the surface, something dangerous. One day, Calivor announced a new proposal, a joint mission into deep space. A mysterious signal had been detected emanating from a distant corner of the galaxy, and the Valith invited humans to join them in investigating its origin. At first, many on Earth saw this as a hopeful sign, a chance to rebuild trust and prove humanity's worthiness as allies. But Daniel wasn't so sure. He knew better than most that appearances could be deceiving, especially when it came to war. Despite his doubts, Daniel was chosen to lead the human contingent for the mission. Joining him were Dr. Laura Bennett, Lieutenant Ryan Cole, who had been released after the failed attack, and two others, Corporal Emily Shaw, a sharp-witted soldier with a knack for problem-solving, and Jack Monroe, an engineer skilled in adapting alien technology. Together, they boarded one of the Valith ships, leaving Earth behind as the massive vessel ascended into the stars. From the moment they stepped aboard, Daniel felt out of place. The ship was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Its walls seemed alive, shifting and glowing faintly as if breathing. Alien crew members moved silently around them, their towering forms casting long shadows. There was no clear hierarchy among the Valith. They all appeared equal, working together seamlessly without words or gestures. As the journey progressed, Daniel noticed subtle changes in how the Valith treated them. While some remained polite, others watched the humans with cold, calculating eyes. One Valith in particular stood out, Trin, a warrior class member who rarely spoke, but always seemed to be observing. His presence made Daniel's skin crawl, though he couldn't explain why. Trin began testing the humans almost immediately. During one session, he led them through a simulated combat scenario designed to mimic real battles. The simulation was brutal, forcing the team to make split-second decisions under pressure. When Ryan hesitated before firing at a virtual enemy, Zrin tilted his head, studying him closely. "Why do you delay?" he asked telepathically, his voice sharp in their minds. "I'm not killing unless I have to," Ryan shot back, his jaw tight. "That's what makes us different from animals." Zrin didn't respond, but Daniel caught the flicker of disdain in his glowing eyes. It was clear the alien didn't understand, or perhaps didn't care about, the distinction Ryan was trying to draw. Laura tried to bridge the gap between the two species, engaging the Valith in conversations about Earth's history and culture. But even she struggled to connect. The more time passed, the more guarded the aliens became. They spoke less, shared less, and kept the humans confined to specific areas of the ship. One night, while exploring a corridor she hadn't seen before, Emily stumbled upon a hidden compartment. Inside were rows of sleek alien weapons far deadlier than anything the Valith had shown them earlier. Her heart raced as she realized the implications. Quietly, she slipped away and reported her discovery to Daniel. "Do you think they're planning something?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Daniel frowned, staring at the floor. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but we can't let our guard down, not for a second." For now, they decided to keep the discovery quiet. Confronting the Valith directly could escalate things too quickly. Instead, Daniel resolved to stay vigilant, watching every move the aliens made. Whatever the Valith were hiding, it was clear their intentions were no longer purely peaceful, and humanity might soon find itself facing a choice between survival and surrender. When the Valith ship finally reached the source of the mysterious signal, the humans and their alien hosts found themselves staring at the ruins of an ancient civilization. The planet below was barren, its surface covered in crumbling structures that looked like they had once been grand, but were now reduced to skeletal remains. Strange symbols etched into the stone glowed faintly under the dim light of a distant sun. It was clear this place had been abandoned long ago, possibly destroyed by war. Daniel Hayes led his team onto the surface, each step stirring up clouds of gray dust. The air was thin, requiring them to wear breathing apparatuses. Corporal Emily Shaw carried a scanner, her eyes glued to the device as it picked up faint traces of energy emanating from the ruins. Jack Monroe followed close behind, adjusting his tools to analyze the strange materials used in the buildings. Laura Bennett walked beside Daniel, her notebook filled with sketches of the symbols she hoped to decode. As they explored, the gravity of what happened here began to sink in. The symbols told a story, a warning left behind by the civilization's last survivors. They spoke of a powerful race that sought conquest, wiping out anyone who stood in their way. The final message was chilling. Do not trust those who claim peace. Their true nature will reveal itself when it is too late. Laura shared her findings with Daniel quietly, her voice trembling. "This feels personal," she said, glancing nervously at the Valith crew members accompanying them. "Like they're talking about the Valith, or maybe even us." Before Daniel could respond, Zrin stepped forward, his towering form casting a shadow over the group. He had been silent for most of the mission, but now he addressed them directly. "You have seen enough," he said telepathically, his tone colder than ever. "It is time to leave." Ryan bristled at the order. "We're not done here," he snapped. "There's more to learn." Zrin's glowing eyes narrowed. In an instant, several Valith surrounded the humans, their weapons trained on them. Panic surged through the group, But Daniel raised a hand, signaling his team to stay calm. "What's going on?" he demanded, looking Zrin in the eye, or where his eye would be if he had one. "You have betrayed our trust," Zrin replied. His voice resonated in their minds, sharp and accusing. "Your people attacked us without cause. Now you come here, seeking knowledge that does not belong to you." "That's not true," Laura protested, stepping forward despite the danger. "We came because we thought we could work together. We didn't mean to." Silence. Zrin's command echoed painfully in their heads. "You are dangerous, unpredictable. You speak of morality, yet commit atrocities. You are no better than the ones who destroyed this world." The accusation hit hard. Daniel clenched his fists, struggling to keep his temper in check. "If you think we're so dangerous, why bring us here at all? Why show us this?" "To prove my point," Zrin answered. "To show you what happens when civilizations refuse to control their aggression. This fate awaits you, and anyone else foolish enough to cross us." For a moment, no one moved. The tension was suffocating. Then, just as Zrin raised a hand to signal something, perhaps an attack, a loud hum filled the air. A holographic image of Calivor appeared, his presence commanding immediate attention. "What is the meaning of this?" Calivor asked, his voice firm but controlled. "Stand down, Zrin. This behavior is unacceptable." Zrin hesitated, his body rigid with frustration. Finally, he lowered his weapon, though his glare remained fixed on Daniel. "They cannot be trusted," he growled before retreating back toward the ship. Calivor turned to the humans, his expression unreadable. "Return to your vessel," he instructed. "We will discuss this further upon our return to Earth." As they boarded the ship, Daniel exchanged a worried glance with Laura. Whatever fragile trust had existed between humans and the Vailith was shattered. And now, as they prepared to head home, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that their journey back would be far more perilous than their arrival. The journey back to Earth was tense and silent. Daniel Hayes sat in the corner of the Vailith ship, his mind racing with questions. What had Zrin meant by calling humans dangerous? Was Calivor truly on their side, or was he just playing a different kind of game? The answers felt just out of reach, like shadows flickering at the edge of his vision. Around him, the rest of the team tried to stay calm, but the unease was palpable. Laura Bennett pored over her notes, rereading the warnings etched into the ruins they had visited. Her hands trembled slightly as she traced the symbols with her finger. "This wasn't just a message," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "It was a prediction, a warning about us, and maybe about the Vailith too." Emily Shaw paced nervously, her eyes darting toward the Vailith crew members who observed them from afar. Jack Monroe tinkered with his tools, trying to distract himself from the heavy atmosphere. Even Ryan Cole, usually quick to speak his mind, stayed quiet, his jaw clenched as he stared at the floor. Daniel broke the silence. "We need to prepare for the worst," he said, his voice low but firm. "Whatever happens when we get back, we can't let our guard down." No one disagreed. They all knew the stakes were higher now. If Zrin's faction gained control, humanity might face retaliation, or worse. But before they could discuss further, the ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. Alarms blared, filling the air with an urgent hum. "What's happening?" Laura asked, gripping the edge of her seat. Daniel didn't answer. He rushed to a nearby window and looked outside. Dozens of smaller Vailith ships surrounded them, their sleek forms glowing ominously. It was clear they weren't allies. These ships belonged to Zrin's faction. Moments later, a hologram of the warrior appeared, his expression hard and unyielding. "You have betrayed us," Zrin declared, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You seek to use what you have learned against us. This ends now." Before anyone could respond, the ship lurched again, as energy beams struck its hull. The lights inside flickered, and the air grew thick with smoke. Emily shouted something about evacuating, but her words were drowned out by another explosion. The humans scrambled to grab their gear, knowing they wouldn't survive long if the ship went down. Kelvor's voice suddenly boomed through the comm system. "Zrin, stand down," he commanded, his tone sharp with authority. "Your actions defy our laws. Cease this attack immediately." For a moment, it seemed Zrin might ignore the order. His ships continued firing, relentless and precise. Then, reluctantly, the attack stopped. The smaller vessels retreated, leaving the main ship battered but intact. Inside, the humans collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath as the alarms faded into silence. Kelvor appeared once again, his form shimmering faintly in the damaged cabin. "This is not how we resolve conflict," he said, addressing both the humans and Zrin. "When we return to Earth, I will speak directly to your leaders. We will decide then whether coexistence is possible or if separation is necessary." Daniel nodded slowly, though he knew this wasn't over. The Valith were pulling back, but the damage had been done. Trust between the two species was gone, replaced by suspicion and fear. As the ship limped toward Earth, Daniel couldn't help but wonder, would humanity rise to meet this challenge, or crumble under the weight of its own flaws? When they finally landed, the world held its breath. The Valith fleet loomed above, a stark reminder of the power humanity faced. Whatever happened next would define the future, for better or worse. Back on Earth, panic spread like wildfire. News of the Valith's withdrawal and Zrin's attack dominated every channel. Governments around the world scrambled to prepare for the worst. Military bases went on high alert, stockpiling weapons and drafting emergency plans. Conspiracy theories flooded social media, with some claiming the aliens were planning an invasion, while others accused humanity of provoking them unnecessarily. Daniel Hayes found himself in the middle of it all. He was called to Washington, D.C., where government officials grilled him about the mission. They wanted details, every word spoken, every move made. Daniel answered as honestly as he could, but he knew his words wouldn't calm anyone. The truth was unsettling. The Valith were powerful, unpredictable, and divided among themselves. Humanity had no clear path forward. Dr. Laura Bennett worked tirelessly alongside Daniel, analyzing the data they'd recovered from the ruins. She spent long hours decoding the symbols, piecing together fragments of knowledge that hinted at advanced alien technology. One discovery stood out: a blueprint for a weapon capable of neutralizing energy fields. If humans could replicate it, they might stand a chance against the Valith. But Laura hesitated to share this information widely. Building such a weapon could escalate tensions further, pushing both sides closer to war. Despite the growing fear, Daniel refused to believe conflict was inevitable. He argued passionately for diplomacy, urging leaders to focus on rebuilding trust rather than rushing into militarization. "We can't fight them head-on," he told a room full of generals and politicians. "They're too advanced. Our only hope is to show them we're worth working with, not fighting." His views earned him both supporters and enemies. Many civilians agreed with him, organizing protests calling for peace. Others saw him as naive, accusing him of underestimating the threat. Among the skeptics was General Harris, a hardline military leader who believed strength was the only language the Valith would understand. "If we don't strike first," Harris warned during one heated meeting, "they'll crush us without hesitation." Amidst the chaos, Laura continued her work quietly. She confided in Daniel, sharing her concerns about the weapon blueprints. "If we use this knowledge," she said one evening as they walked through the empty halls of a research facility, "we risk becoming exactly what they fear, aggressive and unpredictable. Is that who we want to be?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Laura. Maybe there's another way. Something we haven't thought of yet." Meanwhile, ordinary people struggled to adjust to the new reality. Families built bunkers in their backyards, schools practiced emergency drills, and communities held meetings to discuss survival strategies. Fear brought out the best and worst in people. Some banded together to help each other, while others turned inward, hoarding supplies and spreading rumors. As weeks passed, The Valith fleet remained in orbit, watching silently. Their presence loomed over everything, a constant reminder of the uncertainty ahead. Calvor sent occasional messages, reiterating his desire for peace, but warning that humanity must prove itself worthy of trust. These messages did little to ease tensions. If anything, they deepened the divide between those who wanted cooperation and those who favored preparation for war. Daniel and Laura worked late into the night, brainstorming ways to bridge the gap. They drafted proposals for joint projects, efforts to solve global problems using combined human and alien knowledge. But convincing others to take these ideas seriously proved difficult. Too many feared betrayal. Too many doubted the Valith's sincerity. One night, as Daniel stared at a map of Earth, dotted with potential defense zones, he realized something important. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting to define itself. Would they rise above their flaws, showing the Valith that peace was possible? Or would fear drive them to repeat the mistakes of the past? The answer wasn't clear, but one thing was certain. Whatever happened next would shape not just the future of Earth, but the fate of two species bound together by mistrust and hope. Months passed, and the tension between humanity and the Valith reached a breaking point. One morning, the skies above Earth darkened as hundreds of alien ships descended, surrounding the planet in a silent blockade. Cities fell silent, their streets empty as people huddled indoors, waiting for what came next. Panic gripped the world, but no attack came. Only a message broadcast directly into every human mind. Calvor's voice echoed clearly, calm yet firm. "We have observed your actions since our arrival," he began. "You are unpredictable, capable of both great kindness and terrible destruction. Zrin's rebellion was unauthorized, but it revealed truths we cannot ignore. Your species is young, volatile, and untested. If left unchecked, you may one day threaten not only yourselves but others." The words sent shockwaves through humanity. Governments scrambled to respond, but Calvor continued before anyone could speak. "We will withdraw from your world, but with conditions. You must limit your expansion beyond this solar system. Any attempt to colonize other planets or develop weapons of mass destruction will be met with consequences. Consider this a chance to prove you are worthy of existing among the stars." When the transmission ended, chaos erupted. Some saw the ultimatum as a victory. The Valith weren't attacking after all. Others viewed it as a threat, an insult to humanity's freedom. Debates raged in parliaments and living rooms alike, dividing nations and communities. Leaders argued over whether to accept the terms or defy them, risking war with a vastly superior race. Daniel Hayes stood at the center of the storm, his voice rising above the noise. He traveled across the globe, speaking to crowds and advising governments. "This isn't about pride or fear," he said during one speech. "It's about survival. Fighting the Valith would mean extinction. Accepting their terms gives us time to grow, to learn how to live without repeating the mistakes of our past." His words resonated with many, though not everyone agreed. General Harris led a faction pushing for resistance, arguing that surrendering control of space exploration would weaken Earth's future. "If we don't fight now," he declared, "we'll lose everything." In the end, cooler heads prevailed. Humanity accepted the Valith's terms, agreeing to focus on solving problems within their own planet rather than reaching for the stars. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the only one that offered hope. As the Valith fleet prepared to leave, Calvor addressed Earth one final time. "Your fate rests in your hands," he said. "Do not waste this opportunity." The massive ships ascended into the sky, disappearing into the void. For days, the world watched the empty skies, unsure if they'd ever see the aliens again. Slowly, life returned to normal, or as close to normal as possible. Daniel found himself standing atop a hill overlooking the city, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Beside him, Laura placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked quietly. Daniel nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. "We didn't have much of a choice," he admitted, "but maybe this is what we needed, a chance to fix ourselves before stepping out there again. Together, they vowed to keep working toward peace, not just with the Vailith, but within humanity itself. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope. The stars remained distant, but perhaps someday, humanity would reach them, not as conquerors, but as equals ready to earn their place among the cosmos.